Let's continue our discussion and learning of classical Chinese literature. In the last section, we learned and discussed about the representative forms of Chinese classical literature and talk about the most ancient Chinese poems in Shi Jing and the literature in Tang Dynasty, Five Dynasties, and Song Dynasty. Some well-known poems, such as Li Bai, Du Fu, Li Qingzhao, were introduced. In this section, we will continue our discussion and focus on classical novels. Chinese literature contains four masterpieces known as the four great classical novels. They are The Water Margin, also known as Outlaws of the Marsh and Old Man of Brothers, The Romance of the Three Kingdoms, The Journey to the West, also known as Monkey, and The Dream of the Red Chamber, also known as The Story of the Stone. They were written during the Ming and Qing dynasties. Throughout the centuries, these 100-plus chapter novels have permeated Chinese culture and been represented in art, film, drama, literature, and more. The stories, from the adventures of the magical Monkey King to heroic episodes from the Water Margin, are well known by everyone in China, from children to the elderly. They depict characters who abide by Buddhism, Taoist, and traditional Chinese moral philosophies, offering the reader insight to understanding the traditional Chinese way of thought. The Water Margin is a masterpiece of the 14th century, of uncertain authorship. It is the story of a band of outlaws, wanted for crimes committed for rightful purposes, who, to avoid arrest and punishment, seek refuge in the marshy land known as the Liangshan Marshes. There, they create a kind of unruly society with its own codes of honor, fighting against a false government. The story is based on supposedly historical events recorded during the Song Dynasty and evolved from folk tales told by storytellers thereafter. The outlaws are known as the Liangshan's heroes, and some of the stories are so famous that they are quoted for their symbolic value in literature and films, even today. This novel is part of a rich set of collective images dating back again to the Warring States period. Images of noble swordsmen fighting for justice. These knight-like men are known as xia, who reappear in the ever-popular wuxia literature with its sword fighting and martial arts. The setting for the Water Margin is evocative too. Mention the Liangshan Marshes, or the term Jianghu, and things of rightful rebellion and life at the margins immediately appear in mind. A subtle montage of images, ideals, and personal memories. The romance of the Three Kingdoms is set in the turbulent years towards the end of the Han Dynasty and the Three Kingdoms period in Chinese history. Starting in the year 169 and ending with the reunification of the land in the year 280 by Weston Jin. The novel is based primarily on the records of the Three Kingdoms, written by Chen Shou. The events of Romance of the Three Kingdoms take place during and after the demise of the Han Dynasty. The story, part historical, part legend, and part mythical, describes the lives of feudal lords and their retainers who try to replace the Han Dynasty or restore it. The focus of the novel is mainly on the three power blocks that emerged from the remnants of the Han Dynasty and would eventually form the three states of Cao Wei, Shu Han, and Eastern Wu. The novel has a total of 800,000 words and nearly 1,000 dramatic characters, mostly historical as well, in 120 chapters. There are 4 key moments that define the direction of the story following the founding of the Three Kingdoms. The first is the Battle of Red Cliffs in the year 208, fought on the Yangtze River between a Shu alliance and the vastly more numerous invading forces of Cao Cao. The Battle of Xiaoting in the year 222 is the second key turning point in the story. Wu's forces again deploy fire tactics to destroy the invading army, and the defeated Liu retreats to focus his efforts against the more expansive kingdom of Wei. From the year 228 to the year 234, the Shu strategist Zhuge Liang leads a series of northern expeditions against Wei, and these campaigns comprise the third turning point. Although Zhuge Liang uses his strategic abilities to achieve some remarkable results on the battlefield, none of his expeditions inflict a decisive blow. He is always foiled at the last moment by natural causes or by political failures in Shu following the death of Liu Bei. Another key player to have passed away by this point is Cao Cao. Like the Han state before it, the kingdom of Wei was now in the hands of far less capable figures than its founder, leaving the way clear for the final key moment in the tale, Sima Yi's seizure of power in Wei in the year 249. Another one of the 4 classics of Chinese literature is The Journey to the West. Written by the Ming Dynasty novelist Wu Cheng'en during the 16th century, this beloved adventure tale combines action, humor, and spiritual lessons. The novel takes place in the 7th century. Consisting of 100 chapters, it relays the adventures of a Tang Dynasty monk, Sanzang, and his 3 disciples, Monkey, Pig, and Friar Sand, as they travel west in search of Buddhist Sutra. The first 7 chapters recount the birth of the Monkey King and his rebellion against heaven. Then, in chapters 8 to 12, we learn how Sanzang was born and the way he is searching for the scriptures, as well as his preparations for the journey. The rest of the story describes how they defeat monsters, trap over the fiery mountain, cross the Milky Way, and after overcoming many dangers, finally arrive at their destination, the Thunder Monastery in the Western Heaven, and find the Sutra. Journey to the West has strong roots in Chinese folk religion, Chinese mythology, Confucianist, Taoist, and Buddhist philosophy. The journey story has been retold in China for centuries. It can be seen in artworks, cultural festivals, and even as a local movie and small screen adaptations. The Dream of the Red Chamber, also called The Story of the Stone or 红楼梦, composed by Cao Xueqin, is one of China's 4 great classical novels. It was written in the middle of the 18th century during the Qing dynasty. Long considered a masterpiece of Chinese literature, the novel is generally acknowledged to be one of the pinnacles of Chinese fiction. Rhydology is the field of study devoted exclusively to this work. The novel is the tale of a noble family that falls from grace. It is full of incredible detail of the social, cultural, and spiritual life of the time. There are 30 main characters and more than 400 minor ones. The major focus, however, is on Bao Yu. Spoiled by his mother and grandmother, he is continually rebuked by his strict Confucian father, who especially dislikes Bao Yu's intimacy with his numerous female cousins and maidservants. Most notable among these relations are Dai Yu, Bao Yu's ill-fated love, and Bao Chai, his eventual wife. The work and the character of Bao Yu in particular are generally believed to be semi-autobiographical, mirroring the rise and decline of author Cao Xueqin's own family and, by extension, of the Qing dynasty. His portrait of the extended family reflects a faithful image of upper-class life in the early Qing dynasty, while the variety of individual character portraits reveals a psychological depth not previously approached in Chinese literature. That's the 4 great classical novels in the history of Chinese literature. Have you ever read them? Which one do you like most? Which character or characters do you like? So far, we have learned and discussed the classical Chinese poetry and novels, ancient legends, Tang Dynasty poetry, and Ming and Qing Dynasty novels inform Chinese literature of today in a number of ways. These are the poems and stories that Chinese children learn at school and in their private reading. The songs, images, and stories that stay with them throughout their lives and become part of their inner world. In this sense, the best Chinese literature has the same special quality as the ancient Chinese shanshui paintings, landscape paintings, which has been perceived as an inner experience, something that resonates with people's own feelings. In this respect, the 4 classical novels of China are especially interesting as sources of stories that are part of the subconscious of Chinese people. They are fascinating stories in their own right, and they are also part of a common popular cultural subconscious that pervades writing and life. That's the end of this unit. Thank you for joining us, and see you next time.